I know Fighting Game FGC Daily or Fighting Games Daily put out a tweet. He was like, congratulations, Sparking Zero. Yes, it's a fighting game, but it's not a fighting game. And so a lot of people kind of went back and forth about, why are we making this division and blase, blase, all this other stuff. So I'll go ahead and crack this one off. I mean, when it comes to like arena fighters, basically, because that's what Dragon Ball Sparking is. It's an arena fighter. Yes, it's a fighting game. Technically, it's a fighting game. It's in the name, an arena fighter. But when you talk about the FGC, typically everybody leans more towards the 2D, the 3D, the anime style, and that's basically about it. Those are the only ones that, I mean, even with Smash Brothers, which is a platform fighter, we kind of even don't really hold those close to the heart. We kind of like just be like, I remember going to tournaments and stuff, and Smash will literally be in their own room. Like you'd have like the main ballroom where all the fighting games and stuff are going on. Then you go to the janitor's closet, and that's where they play in Smash. You know, and you already know who in the bathroom, but we ain't gonna talk about that. But
Oh man.
so yeah, it's just the FGC just doesn't treat it like it's a fighting game. I guess you could say like it's kind of like how I've heard Michael J. White. He'll talk about all the different martial arts, and then when it comes to him talking about Steven Seagal, he's like, yeah, I mean, what he does is, I mean, it's legit a martial art and stuff like that, but I mean, he can go win. Like, I mean, what he go do in a real fight against like me or something like that. So I forgot the martial art is called, but if you know Steven Seagal and you've seen his movies and stuff like that, and you've seen Michael J. White interviews, you know how basically like people feel about his discipline. But they just kind of look at it like, yeah, it's a martial art, but I mean, I'm gonna punch you in the face. But so that's how people basically treat Smash or platform fighters, arena fighters. They're basically just like, yeah, I mean, you a fighting game, yeah, we give you that title, but go over there in the corner. And I kind of see why they do that. I mean, typically when you play arena fighters, like it's split screen, in a lot of cases. I remember like Tikaichi and stuff like that, it wouldn't be split screen, or some of the Naruto games you play be split screen, but some of them are split screen. Typically with fighting games, they kind of put you in like a environment where you and the player that you're playing against are kind of like in tight quarters. There's basically like limited space you can go to, like in a Street Fighter or something like that, when you're in the 2D plane, or when you're in the 3D plane. It's not like you can get in the Tekken and like truly have free range to, like, if you want to go to the whole other side of the stage and run and get there, you do it. Like, no, you're kind of like limited. It's like you could do like a backdash, but it's kind of like stiff. They don't want you to like completely run away. Like, no, you got to be here in the fight. With arena fighters, I could literally be playing Naruto and literally sprint and take off in that direction. Or in Dragon Ball, I could literally fly like 50 miles away in the sky if I wanted to and just shoot volleyballs at you the whole time. The move sets are kind of simple. I remember in a lot of Naruto games back in the day, all you had to do was just hit triangle so many times, light up different colors, then hit circle, and then you do your special. You know, or it's just known that people are spamming circle, in arena fighters and stuff like that. In traditional fighting games, the move sets are more difficult and stuff like that. They're more complex. So, it has enough differences to where you're just like, okay, like we not gonna count it with the 2Ds and 3Ds. And even with like Smash Brothers, especially Melee, it's a complex game, but it's like it's really kind of not like traditional fighting games. So they kind of like, disown it. But I'm not trying to take up too much time. So I see what I'm kind of with it with separating arena fighters. Yes, you're a fighting game, but you like you like the you ain't a fighting game though. Like you a fighting game, but you ain't a fighting game. So how do you feel about it?
Like traditional fighter, maybe not, but I mean, it still would fall under the category of fighting game in my mind, right? Because I mean, it is a game where you do, in fact, go one-on-one with another person, and you both fight to see who can get the other person's hit points all the way down to zero. I mean, like that's the basic tenet of doing a fighting game, right? And I don't know, man. Like I always regarded like the Tenkaichi like games as fighting games. People got really into it, man. Like we really like studied like trying to do combos and stuff like that, trying to do strategy, like hiding behind buildings. You know, I mean, and when it comes to like, I
This
wanted to
man
address
just
like
said hiding behind buildings.
I ain't gonna lie. I remember people doing it, and that's kind of
yeah, man. Like
They a real fighting game
that's
though, and you
that's
hiding
part of the
behind a
meta.
building.
That's part of the meta, man.
I
Like,
couldn't hide behind a building when Akuma was violating me in Alpha 3 back in the day.
yeah, you should have just blocked, man. Like that was your hiding behind it. You should have just blocked.
Then I just got Raging Demon.
Hey, jump. He can't combo into that. Jump.
And then he was teleported in the sky and just did his air Hadouken special.
Oh man.
He was
See, and
losing
now it's just like,
regardless.
and then it's just like Dragon Ball Z because he can teleport into the air and shoot blasts at you. It's the same concept.
Man,
Like
when you was fighting all them SNK bosses back in the day and KOL getting destroyed, you couldn't even hide behind a building, bro. You couldn't do that in no
who do you
real
want to
fighter.
fight? Who do you want to fight? Omega Rugal or Goku? Like I'd rather fight Goku. I'd
You
rather
just
fight
proving
Goku.
the genre softer, bro. That's what you saying.
I'd rather fight Goku.
SAWFT.
It's not about what genre is softer. It's about whether or not it's a fighting game or not, and it is. Like you know, and like we were talking about this before, but it's like, what's the deal with like you know being all like up in arms about how much it sells in comparison to the Tekken and Street Fighter anyway? Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, why is your pride in your game, whatever game? First off, why do you have so much pride in that anyway? But that's a complete other thing. But like, why is it tied so much into whether or not what game sells more than the other game and stuff like that? You know, that's very, very weird to me because it's like, you know,
I gotta
if you're
get
gonna,
my engagement up on Twitter.
oh yeah, you know, you're right. That engagement farm, it's a crazy business, right? It's hard out there, man. trying to farm engagement, you know, when you really don't have anything to post about. So I get it, but you know, it's like I don't know. Like this is kind of a side note, but it's like, why do you care how much the other games? So you know, it should be like I feel like it should kind of be like, yo, man, fighting games are back, man, because for a little while, you know, it was just kind of fighting games were just kind of like, you know, they're there, but they weren't really like integral into the zeitgeist like that. Like they're really back in the forefront, man. Like fighting games are like right in your face all the time now. People that didn't play Tekken years ago are playing Tekken now. People who didn't play Street Fighter are playing Street Fighter now. People who watch Dragon Ball Z, never played a fighting game are playing Sparking. So what's the point of having the division when you just say, hey, you know what, they're all fighting games anyway. So whether or not they're like, and then of course you have subgenres, right? Whether it's an arena fighter or traditional fighter, but they're all fighting games, you know? I mean, there is a distinction to be made, but to be like, oh, well, it's not under the same umbrella, that's just ludicrous in my mind. So yeah, I think it's a fighting game.
Honestly, you know, E's right. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a fighter. I mean, y'all are technically in the subgenre of fighting games. So the whole bickering back and forth about, you know, do it matter or not that it is an arena fighter? It doesn't. But two things can also be true. It doesn't matter, but it could also not matter while, you know, you outside of the club and can't get into the fighting game club. You know, so two things can be true. It don't matter. We shouldn't be arguing about this, but you go be outside while it don't matter.
I actually consider Budokai as an actual traditional fighting game. The first ones, 1, 2, and 3, I consider those traditional fighters because it had
it's kind of like a 3D fighter with airplay too.
Yeah, it was basically like a 2D, 3D. Well, not really 2D, 3D because it was in a 3D plane. You could sidestep, but you had a little more freedom of movement. But I actually kind of consider it had meter management. The meter was a lot more like kind of traditional. You couldn't just teleport forever. There was like, I know 3 had it where you could like teleport a few times, but man, like that's one of the things. Like I remember back playing Naruto. I think when it first came out, like the newer version of Ultimate Ninja Storm. Or Ninja Storm rather, dude, it was so annoying fighting somebody and they just substitution. It's like, bro,
Yeah.
can they please put some type of like limit on this? And I think they eventually did. I'm not sure. I didn't play a whole lot of those games, but don't get me wrong. Those games were fun. They had the feel of Naruto. They were great games. They were great Naruto games, but I would not consider them like great fighting games. They were arena fighters. That's what they were made for. Um, and there is a level of technicality and like you can go count like some depth there because you see people like back when Budokai came out. I was like, I wonder that people playing like tournaments for this. There's like some high level play, and I ran across this dude on YouTube named Underlord Tico. And if you ever watch his videos, he breaks those Budokai games wide open. He's doing infinites. He's doing like unblockable
Dang.
sit-ups. And I'm like, I didn't even know this game could be played like this. And it was like he's doing like cancels and apparently a lot of this stuff is like super hard to do. So if you go search up Underlord Tico on YouTube, you'll see footage from Dragon Ball Budokai 3. I think
Infinites and Budokai is crazy.
yeah, he just like, hey, TOD, if I open you up with this, you dead. What's the other game that came out on PSP? It was Shin Budokai, I think it was called. And even there's another game that's kind of maybe lost in history, but Super Dragon Ball Z. If anybody
Yeah.
remembers that game, I
So
actually
I remember Ultimate Battle 22.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's kind of weird because Super Dragon Ball Z is not technically a traditional fighter, but it had a scene. It was in arcades, and it was actually kind of difficult to play. It had a lot of technicality, some crazy combos, some high execution. I'm like, it's not a
Of a hyper
traditional.
dimension, yeah.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, the fan made game, which was actually pretty good. But yeah, let's be honest, it's not considered an actual traditional fighter. It's an arena fighter. Like I said, people want to press circle to their heart's content, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. And with that being said, like I said, there's still some depth to these games. If you really sit down and try to figure these games out, there's a meta, there's a way you can play these games to be optimal, obviously. But just in terms of like, would I rather play Tenkaichi or Fighter Z? I'm picking Fighter Z, me personally. Now, do I enjoy playing a game like Dragon Ball Z where it kind of gives you more of that feel and the power of those characters, like being able to fly around and knock somebody through a mountain? That's all cool because you see it in the shows. You're like, hey, I can do it in game, so that's dope. But it still has that separation, that enough of a separation was like, okay, I get why people would say this is not considered a traditional or fighting game. And for some reason, there's a weird thing nowadays where classification of games is getting kind of skewed. I'm gonna go back to Game Awards. I think it was 20. Was it last? No, I think it was 2022. Sifu was at the Game Awards, and that was under the title of a fighting game. I'm like, what? This is an action game. like, so I'm
Well,
like,
you do fight people.
like you fight people, but this is not a fighting game. This is an action game. So I'm like, it seems like the categorization of games is getting kind of like lost. And I'm like, who sat there and said Sifu is a fighting game compared to like Street Fighter and Tekken? It's like it's not even the same type of game. But so yeah, if you want to press circle, hey, I more
Just
power to
go ahead
you,
and
man.
keep it real with it, Devin. Tell them they fugazi. Just say it.
Hey
Just tell them
man.
they fraudulent. Poo the genre.
I mean, I can't knock it, man. I know some people just want to get in. They just want to feel powerful. They just want to knock somebody through a mountain. They want to throw a Kamehameha. They want to knock you in the water. I get it. I get it. Some people, the Dragon Ball Z is so beloved. That's what they want to do. So I'm not even gonna get mad at it because it's like, it's in the new generation's graphics, so it's all this beautiful glory that you see. Even though Dragon Ball Fighter still looks better art style wise visually. I saw a debate about that on Twitter. I don't know. One guy was tripping. It's like, bro, if you think Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero looks better style wise and fighters, you are crazy. Anyway, um, but yeah, man, I get it. People want to press circle. They want to teleport. They want to throw what's the move? What do they call it? Energy volley, like the Vegeta special. They want to do the left hand, right hand. So I get it, but it's not. It's just not a traditional fighter. That's it.
Go ahead and keep it real with him, Evan, since he didn't do it.
I
He
I
being
mean,
nice
the
with
thing,
it. Go ahead and tell the truth.
You know, the thing about it is that at least in my opinion, maybe like it,